there, CEOs. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Barter Blacks Today in Black History podcast, where we are spotlighting Black-owned businesses that you need to know. I am so happy to be here today with Miss Shatayia Baker, who is the CEO of Peaceful Therapy Services, Inc., an agency that partners with clients, giving them the tools to build themselves, which in turn rebuilds their lives. Hi, Shatayia. How are you?
I'm so excited.
So let's go ahead and just jump right on in. Can you tell us a little bit more about Peaceful Therapy Services, Inc.?
So peaceful is mental health practice for everything pretty much under the sun. So it's a private practice, yes, but it goes from every mental diagnosis, from anxiety, depression, self-harm, work-related stress. And we do everything. Like whatever troubles you, there's a therapy, thing that we can help really get the I like to say experiences because I'm a veteran. I'm an Air Force veteran. So like we could get experiences with you and really figure out like is what's going on? What are the behaviors that's no longer serving you? And let's figure out the strategy that's going to get you over that to help you overcome so that you can rebuild your whole life. Like if you get your mind right and your perspective and your emotions, and because that's the thing we don't know how to handle is our emotions. Not about what happened, it's about what are our emotions, how do we think about it, how do we feel about what happened, the whole safe space of therapy. And so that's what I create is the safe space to heal, really.
Okay. I appreciate you for being that partner in people's healing. So how prevalent would you say that mental health is in the United States?
It is more prevalent than we think, and that's really why I got into it, because it was like because I was diagnosed with everything under the sun, really, literally every medication under the sun, every it wasn't the therapist. I only had like one therapist, but it was like, I don't even think I'm helping you
Mhm.
because the problem is still consisting. And so she was like ready to and it was like, wait a minute, you the therapist. What's the deal? But it's so prevalent but see, what happens is that we know how to control it by the way we think, by the way we react or respond. We know how to cope with it. And so it's so prevalent. For example, how does it show up right now in today's society, which is very surprising because suicide is becoming the highest, the way it comes out, mental health comes out is usually in the behaviors, right? And so what happens is our body reacts. Okay. So mental health is basically the trauma on the body, soul, and mind. That's it. And so when you have suicide, which is prevalent in all ages, all races, all everything, celebrity, poor, it doesn't matter. Uh, Now it's getting down to 8 years old to whatever, 99, it doesn't matter the age. And so with suicide, it's 1 in every 11 minutes in the US across ages, across race, across everything, celebrity, poor, it doesn't matter. 1 in every 11 minutes. That's just to me. And so for me, it was like, as a consumer of health services, now it's like, and I'm managing, right? I feel like I was born into depression, literally.
But what's the difference between a therapist and life coaching?
It is so big because life coaches they're everywhere. They do everything. But and I do life coaching. However, the key is evidence. We have this term evidence-based practice. So evidence-based practice has been proven to work with certain populations, certain conditions in particular. And so if you don't have that knowledge, on how to tie. For me, it's very simple: how to tie the body, soul, spirit, and then add a cultural component to it, because race does play a part in everything.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really, and then how to create a safe space at the same time for healing. You don't really, a life coach can do so much. You have to give them a specific task.
Yeah.
Like, this, is it health? Is it? And so what happens is everybody wants a life coach because some of them are expensive and some of them are cheap, but they're unregulated. They don't have
Mm.
an ethic. They don't have, like, see, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And so we're professional. We have a ethical body that if I mess up, my license can get pulled.
Mm.
That the profession. And so I know the evidence-based practice because this is what I went to school for. And so, but social work is, and so MFT, marriage family therapy, more is different because they're trained to be therapists. And so but they body. And so it's the license that separates the life coach versus therapist. It's
Okay.
the and you
Okay.
need to, oh, you really need to go when you go looking for therapists. You really need to know, like, is it empathy, social work? We're general. We do everything. We know how to get you resources, and so it's biopsychosocial. So bio, social, cultural, spiritual. We have 5 ways, and we don't
Mm.
know the problem, but we come from 5 angles to help you. And then that's the difference for me and my life coaching practice is we have 5 ways to help you think about your situation. And then our whole thing is, let's bring peace to chaos.
I love it. Peace. I swear I'm going to be thinking about that every time, every time there's chaos. Let's bring peace to chaos.
Yeah, I mean, really though.
You are going to come to mind.
It's all about, because peace is the alignment between every part of your life and body and mind. It's peace. If you don't have alignment between everything this way and everything this way, including everything in your and everybody around you, that's the difference. That's the fine line between sanity and insanity. That's it.
Mm.
Thing one. It just takes
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
And I love therapy because it's like, what's your one thing like that's causing chaos? Come on, let's fix
Let's fix it.
Really, that's it. And it only takes one thing to send you over the edge. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. So why is this important to you? What's your why?
Man, my why is because, had my cousin not said what he said while we were teenagers, because we was the same age. I think he was like 4 months older than me. Lord rest his soul. But had he not said that to me as a teen, I probably would have never, like, it may not have resonated with me. Like, really? Am I depressed? Like, that was a moment where it's like, really? Laying in the bed all day, listening to jazz? Like, I thought it was just comfortable. Like, I'm just chilling. Like, I'm awake. And so for me, that became my why now as a therapist. And then I had to figure out personally, like, why have I struggled with depression? Because there's always a why. And so I had to go back to, well, why did my grandma check herself into the mental ward? And that was like, okay, and then why was my mom like just interesting? She's just the most interesting one that I've ever met in my life. Like, that's my +1 forever. And so I mean, she's more hip than literally, she's mentally younger than me. My mom is just everything. And so now as a therapist, because I was a consumer, like I said, diagnosed with everything under the sun, every medication under the sun. And then, some things have side effects, or hair's falling out because I wasn't managing my stress. And stress, to me, stress and fear are like the underlining to everything in the DSM. Every diagnosis is exacerbated by stress and fear. That's it. To me, I just believe that in my whole heart. And so my why is because I not only have I overcome depression, it's more so about I'm managing every day. Like I know my formula. You know what I'm saying? For me, it's like I have to have fun intentionally every day. I have to, why is my sense of humor so humory? Because like if I don't have fun and laugh intentionally, I can't really maintain depression at bay, at arm's length. So I have to wake up looking for reasons to laugh, looking for reasons to have fun. And so that's my maintenance plan. I've been off medication, I think now for 2 years, go 2 years or yeah, about that time. So I've been, this is now year two, maybe 3 years. I done lost count. But so this is now year two for me in private practice. And so yeah, it's just so much involved with being a consumer because of the stigma, especially in the Black community and even every other community. But now, post COVID, everybody wants therapists. But now, what's happening is the shift. Everybody wants life coaching too, and so, but they don't know it's unregulated. And so, and that's the key. And so for me, therapy is like you have to have a good therapist, you have to have a good life coach. Because if they don't know evidence-based practice, they're just taking really just taking your money to solve your problem. And nobody can really solve your problem but you. We can lead you, but nobody can
Yeah.
really problem but you.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the Black culture because we have this notion that we don't need therapy, like you said, we just need church. Like just go to church, it'll handle. So what advice would you give to people who has that family culture where we don't go to therapy?
Listen, it's the whole, if you don't listen, that's the key really. If you don't listen to you internally, that's really it. Like if you don't have a connection with you, you need somebody to partner with you to teach you how to do that.
So I want to ask about family therapy. Um, how important is that in what situations, if you could tell us that we would come to family therapy? I think people, a lot of times, especially me, sometimes I always think about therapy as just for me. But
Yeah.
what makes family therapy important?
Family therapy to me is everything because if we don't, that's our first social setting, really. That's how simple it is. It's and so what happened in COVID is we took everything from the outside away. And now we had to be with the people that we live with, whether that's a kid or an adult. And really though, we spend so much time outside of the house that we don't really know each other. And so family therapy is like it's the communication really is the breakdown. And so with family therapy, we because what happens normally in therapy is somebody is identified as the problem. And so that's where individual therapy is great, but it's really a family issue. It's never just that one kid or that one alcoholic parent or the domestic violences. That's a byproduct of the dysfunction. And so the family therapy says, okay, like from everybody's perspective, tell me what's your perspective of what's going on in the family. Everyone has a different one depending on your age and your role. And so for me as a middle kid, I was the peacemaker, literally. I was like, oh, y'all crazy. And okay, how do I fit in? I'm the middle kid. And so, that's the family therapy brings all perspectives. It brings everything to for me, if I'm coming from a biopsychosocial, spiritual, cultural, like I have assessment. I could tell you from all of those, but then from each perspective, whether you're the grandmother raising the grandkids or whatever, like family therapy is everything. Because if we don't learn how to that social setting, we really can't be good in any other social setting.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for saying that because I know that will definitely hit home with a lot of people. It's not just me or it's not just you. It starts with
The
all of
fa-
us.
it's the
All of
family.
us. Yeah. So two things before we go. Tell us about your books first.
Of my books. So the first book is a workbook for really with identity for young women. And so I tell a lot of my story on why like identity was my issue, and I had to work through that. And I mean, identity is everything for anybody. And so if you don't know who you are, you don't know how to like when things go awry. Like for me with depression, teenage years, you really can't really know who you are. And so I really a workbook, and that's what I love. And so there's a lot of reflective questions, so you can discover, align, or realign, and then you know it's. I use the word solidify, and so it's like at the end of the book, it's like all the whole like how do you make your identity really really strong, and then be able to go forth in life, like go forth and be great. Like if you know your identity, you can go forth and be great. You really can. But if you don't know as a young woman, then how can you be a good sister, a mom, spouse, whatever, partner, it doesn't matter. You just you all jacked up, really. You just it starts for young women. It starts like when they're a little girl. And then if that little girl's broken, then what happens in teenage years messes with the adult years. And so I come from that, but I come from more my teenage perspective because that's when I realized like maybe I am depressed. Thank you, Malik, cousin Malik. You know, but then it was like I had to go back to say, okay, like yeah, I was that kid that witnessed domestic violence. I was, yeah, okay, that kind of makes sense. And so, yeah, that's the workbook, and it's called Just as I Am, because if we just know just who we are, it's just so simple after that. And so the workbook is everything. But the second book that's currently in process is my domestic violence, not just survival story. So not just my domestic survival story, but I kind of go back to my mom's a little bit, and then what I've learned along the way. So that's in process. I had a deadline, but then it was like, why am I doing that to myself? I'm just not gonna stress myself out about this book. I'm just not, because I'm still actually because I'm kind of like in the last chapters of like mentally, because I still have to co-parent with my abuser. He lived right down the street, bless his heart. And I'm like, stay over there. We'll stay over here. Don't ring my doorbell. I know you put the ring in for me and all. Thank you. God bless you. But stay down there, a mile and a half, like literally a mile and a half down the street. Just stay over there. We over here. Don't come to my door. The kids will come out to you. And so, I mean, and that book is called listen, Nicole, this gonna knock his whole socks off. The Pain of the Push. I told you it's gonna knock your whole socks off. The pain of the push. And for domestic violence, I know, thank God for Johnny Depp and what he, pretty much put on the platform that it's men and women. Because the pain of the push is everything, not just from a woman's perspective, but a man's perspective too. If you go up to any man and push him, oh, you're gonna have a whole nother situation on your hands. And so the pain of the push is just, and so every chapter literally starts with a P. And it's just what I've learned along the way from a therapeutic perspective, a life perspective, an everything perspective, because it plays out in every area of your life. It really does. If you've been, I mean, just think about it. If you've been pushed in life, at work, or in your family, or if somebody cuts you off on the road, and it doesn't matter. It's the pain of the push. Birthing babies. It's everything across this. But but domestic violence shows up in every area of your life too. It does, like I said, it can be somebody hits your car. That's still trauma. That's still a push because they were swerving because they was texting, and now you got road rage. I got a whole program on anger management. Listen, anger management, grief and loss, depression and anxiety are my long-term programs. And so those are just everything too, because nobody teaches us how to deal with those kinds of things. And so those are my 6 to 8 week programs. And so Anger management is big. Depression, anxiety, and grief and loss. Nobody teaches you how to heal through grief and loss. Grief and loss is one of those life things that, like, listen, either you heal or you don't. And it affects for you the rest of your life. And you can't prepare for it. That's the problem. But
Yeah,
loss is in every area of life.
definitely. Definitely. It's something that I'm sure everyone has gone through. And it's definitely not easy. I dealt with it last year with the passing of my brother. So um, that definitely hit home.
And the thing about grief and loss, because for me, my biggest why was when the Air Force said, you're no longer fit to be in the Air Force. Literally, right. We haven't talked about this because they had diagnosed me. That was, I mean, if you really ask me my real why, that was the first time ever I had ever been fired from a job. Now, mind you, I've been working since 14. And so when I went in, and I've been wearing the blue uniform in RCC since 14 too. And so then now when I joined at 19, and they're like, and I based, it was just a whole interesting, you have to get the first book that was with 13 other authors. Like, you got to get that book. That's on there too. Like Live Life Full and all that. That's where I start the mental, where I tell people the mental health journey. But I mean, it was just, they were like, no, you're mentally ill. You got to get out. And I was like, absolutely not. I'm supposed to be here 12 years. Like, I've been wearing this uniform since 14 and I'm 20 something. Like, what are you talking about? And so when I fought it with the medical review board, and they were like, no, you got to get out. But then I had to go to work every day. I'm like, why am I sitting in the dental office if I'm mentally unstable to be in the United States Air Force? Like, that makes no sense. I still got to work. What? Okay. This is how we're going to work this. I said, you're going to pay me for the rest of my life. I didn't know how. I didn't. I was like, I don't know how, but you're going to not only pay me for the rest of my life, you're going to pay for the birth of my children. You're going to pay me a settlement. That's basically what it is. I'll go happily. I'll go. I don't need you. I've been doing this from 14 to 20 something, clerical. And I purposely went in the Air Force because literally it was a Black man that came to my junior high school. And I had 2 Black daddies, one adoptive, one bio. I'm going to follow the Black man in the uniform. That's where I'm going. It was that simple. And here we are. And so, I mean, it's just, but that was the first time I've been fired. And that's what PTSD is, the body's response to trauma. Not just the body's response to trauma, but the mind, the emotions, everything, because it messes with your sleep. That's PTSD right there. And it's like, if you can't handle the body's response on trauma, and that's across whatever, no matter whatever the trauma is, whether it's the loss of a divorce or whatever, loss of a brother, it doesn't matter. Trauma is trauma, because it's the definition of trauma is the impact that it made on you as a person. That's trauma. Everybody got trauma. I'm telling you, everybody got it. But we define it. That's the thing. We define it. We learn how to cope with it. And then people don't want to go to therapy because the stigma. And it's like, it's really not a stigma. It's a safe place if you got the right therapist or life coach. I'm both.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you just gotta make the call and, and
yeah,
just make the call. So I know you have an event coming up, right?
yeah. So
Let us know about the event.
March 25th is virtual. So my event is called Best Practices Summit. And so Best Practices Summit is very big for mental health. Well, not just mental health, and everybody wants to know best practices, right? And whatever career you are in. But for mental health, people, therapists, those who want to be a therapist, those who are in school for social work, those who are in school for counseling, it doesn't matter. Best practices is cool and all for therapy and treatment, but then what about business best practices? And nobody teaches us how to do business. We went to school to save the world. That's just what social workers and I just know. But there's so many other counseling, depending on what state you're in, they call it something different. And so we come together for 4 things and 4 things only. So it's support. It's support. That's like the first thing. And everybody needs support, especially therapists and mental health providers. So support, consult is important, because what happens is we don't know, like, who do we, once you become licensed, that everybody's on their own depending on what state you are in. And so that's why I love this event, because we have consultation in our profession is, when are you clueless on how, I mean with your particular client? And so we consult with each other, but we don't have consultation once you're licensed. Everybody's independent private practice or group practice. And then network, like everything is network, right? If you don't have the right network, like when you go on vacation, who's going to be, you can't really, me ethically, I can't tell my clients, okay, go to the nearest emergency room or call 911. That's great and all, but I'm their therapist. I'm not their peacemaker, I'm their therapist or life coach, depending on what state you live in. And so, because as a therapist for licensed clinical social workers, like I could do therapy in California only, unless I go get licensed in every other state. And so that's why life coaching is my thing. And I have packages for that and everything. But and so then the last one is, oh, there's so much, like, so we have support, we have consult, we have network, and then what's the last one, Nicole? You didn't I didn't probably even write, I did write it down somewhere. um Learn. Yeah, that's the one. I always forget about learn because I'm out of school. So we're gonna learn for sure. We're gonna learn best business practices. We're gonna learn, and so this one in particular, and we're gonna change the topic because it's a event that's gonna be every quarter. So this one is trauma best practices. So how do we serve our clients for trauma best practices and best business practices? But then we're going to network, we're going to have fun, we're going to get to know everybody's expertise, and we're going to have community. And then my whole free stuff I give out for community is going to be phenomenal. And so March 25th is just the first one, but we're going to do March, we're going to do June, we're going to do September and December. And then next year is going to be complete. We may do it next year too, but my goal is to have next year as a conference in 2024, 2025. But the budget got a budget. So if we don't, if we do 2 years of best practices summit, then that's what it'll be. If we do conference, then that's what it'll be. We don't know yet. My team is awesome. My team is awesome.
Nice, nice. I love it. So what's the website to get the tickets to the event?
So it's on Eventbrite. And so it is very, very simple. This is going to save your whole mentality, your whole mental health. Best Practices Summit.eventbrite.com. Y'all know how to spell Eventbrite. Come on.
And that'll be in our show notes as well. So you can just click on the link right under this video and get tickets to the summit. Thank you, Shatayia, so much. But before we go, we want to give people an opportunity to shoot their shot at you for a barter. So what types of things do you need in your business right now that you wouldn't mind bartering for?
So the biggest thing for me is accounting and QuickBooks and that whole thing. We didn't go to, they had a special statistic class in school for social workers. That's we are not math. We're just not. And so if you are an accountant and QuickBooks, and I do have a tax person, but accountant tax is different. And so I need y'all on the team. Where y'all at?
Right. Make them numbers math. So you heard it here first. If you are an accountant, bookkeeper, all of that, definitely shoot your shot in the comments at Shatayia. Thank you, Shatayia, so much for joining me. Thank you everyone for watching and listening. We will be back here tomorrow, same time, same place, with another amazing entrepreneur. Again, Shatayia, thank you so much for coming.
It's been fabulous.